Okay, so I want to give you a little heads up as to what the quiz tomorrow will look like. Essentially, it's going to look like this. You'll have vocabulary quiz, you'll have your word bank up here, and the directions will be: use the following words and sentences which conform to the syntactical structure. You'll have maybe 8 to 10 sentences using the various phrases, and they will all be about Lord of the Flies. Okay, so if you've read, you should do fine, at least with the content. It's just a matter of coming up with these beginnings. So you have 1 point for using the word correctly in a sentence, and 2 points if you get the correct sentence structure and punctuation. Okay, so you always want to have commas after the introductory phrases. So the first one we'll look at is an absolute phrase. An absolute phrase is a noun followed by an ed verb or an ing verb. Okay, and again, all these phrases are groups of words, and they're all used to describe the subject of the sentence, so they add detail. Okay, so for example, I might have eyes weeping, Ralph feels lost as he descends the mountain towards the lagoon. Okay, so here is our phrase, and we're going to underline it, and this is our absolute phrase. And again, with a phrase, we can get rid of the phrase and still have a complete sentence. Add it back, and we're adding detail to Ralph. Keep in mind, when you have these phrases, the subject or the noun it modifies has to come immediately after the phrase, otherwise the sentence doesn't make sense. If you had, for example, eyes weeping, the lagoon looked strangely dark to Ralph, it would not make sense because you would be describing the lagoon with eyes weeping. Okay, so again, Ralph is being described by eyes weeping. Okay, so that's all there is with the absolute phrase. Okay, with infinitive, it's to plus a verb. So, to speak at an assembly, one needs to hold the conch shell. Here is our infinitive phrase. And again, we could get rid of this, and we'd end up with a simple sentence: one needs to hold the conch shell. And that's what an infinitive phrase is. Okay, to plus a verb. Moving on, we could have a past participle, which would be a single word, or a past participial phrase, which may be more common. What happened with the, let me just do this for one moment. What some of you did with your sentences, you would have something like this: frustrated, let me capitalize that, frustrated, the island made Ralph feel sad. Okay, this is an incorrect use of the past participle, because as written, frustrated describes island and has to be right next to Ralph. Okay, so this would be wrong. Some of you in your vocabulary sentences had this incorrect. So how we can make this better: frustrated Ralph, you have to change a little bit, looked out over the island toward the blue sea. Okay, so that's past participle. Now if you want to make a past participial phrase, we can just say frustrated at the lack of order, Ralph looked out over the island toward the blue sea. Again, in this case, here's our past participial phrase. Okay, well, excuse me, moving down a little bit, let's similarly with the present participle, again, that would just be an ing verb. Okay, but as a past participial phrase, we could have swimming in the lagoon, the boys felt refreshed. Okay, here is our present participial phrase. It describes the boys. It's a good sentence. Okay. Now, in a positive phrase, positives are always phrases because they're more than one word, and we want to begin the sentence with it. Okay, let's say begins. because that's what your quiz will say. All right, so let's see. The boys, a group from a British private school, feel lonely as the novel continues towards its resolution. Okay, may not be a true statement, but feel savage, however you want to say it. But again, this is our appositive phrase right here. We can take this out, and we have a complete sentence. We can add it back in, and there's our positive phrase. Okay, so that's all that is. Now you may get a sentence too. Prepositional phrases, I assume you know what they are. You can look at your worksheet for that. But let's try, we have something like this. Begins with an appositive phrase and contains both an appositive and absolute phrase. And again, we think of a positive, we're always thinking of a phrase, because there'll be more than one word. So, quickly, to be rescued from the island, the boys minds spinning, or minds confused, feel hopeless because the fire which went out of control got lost. Ugh, that's a terrible sentence. Wait a second here. Well, rather than redo this whole video for this, you will not have this item on the test. Okay, I may ask you to combine a couple of them together, but I'll make sure you don't have this combination. So if you're familiar with the first 5, you know what the words mean, you should do well with it. Again, you might see past participle rather than the phrase, or present participle in the phrase. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, send them to me within the next hour or so. I'll be happy to, or by 8:30, I'll be happy to answer them. But again, go over the worksheet, study the words, you should do fine. Okay.